Well, let's get into this then. Let's give an example of how I could potentially push you and for your audience in a way that maybe they haven't seen you push before. Um, you know, I know that sometimes it can feel like a lot of pressure being in the role that you're in, where you teach around resiliency and needing to be on, right? Needing to be the one who stands in front of the room and conveys confidence and projects resiliency. And here's how I've done things well. Also, here's how I've done things not so well in the past. But in your private moments, you may not always feel strong or confident or have all the answers or even be as together as maybe people in the audience perceive you to be. Why don't you share a little bit about some of those moments where you feel particularly raw and tender and question yourself, and who is Jenny in those moments?
Hmm. Um, who am I in those raw moments? And I mean, let me say, like, I don't have it all together. And it's funny to me that people always assume that I do because it's not like I'm trying to convince people that I know. I think this is just my personality. I'm regularly more confident than I have any right to be. Um, and part of that I feel like is a little bit of stupidity, but like I will just always pretty much always give myself the benefit of the doubt that I'll just figure it out. Like I'll just figure it out. And I think like even giving myself the grace in this space to say I don't have to know how to do all of this before I start, but I'm just going to figure it out. I'm just going to figure it out one piece at a time. I don't have to know everything. There's no way I could ever know everything. And I think that's also what I miss about live interactions because that's where like the magic happens, where something weird will happen and I'll tell a story or let sort of people in behind the scenes. But I think like in a lot of these videos that I've been doing lately, I just, because I'm by myself, I just feel like I need to be professional Jenny. Um, I think the thing that really sort of like unlocks sort of like seeing the behind the scenes Jenny is being with other people and just being in conversation because I think the people in my life know I am 100% transparent. And I think there's times when people are like, too transparent, Jenny. Like, that
Yeah.
was a little too much. Um, I don't know, but I feel like the places where I'm really, really raw, I would say is like being a mom because like how do you know the right way to handle problems when they come up? So I have a 20-year-old daughter um, who has been like just the most lovely, easy child. And that's actually kind of a downside because she's been so easy. When some hard thing comes up, fuck, I haven't really had a lot of practice. And so I completely freak out, and her emotions very quickly become my emotions. And I always feel like I need to be solving
Yeah.
those emotions. And I kind of go into this like panic mode where I'm like, what do I do? What do I do? How do I fix this? Um, that's a pretty raw, vulnerable space for me that feels scary and confusing just because I feel like there's so much on the line.
Yeah.
Um, so it's sort of like a long roundabout answer.
Well, I mean, one of the times where I had a chance to really see and feel and witness your heart was when your daughter went away to college for the first time. And why don't you share a little bit about that, Jenny? Because I can even just see in your reaction like how real that still is on some level for you. Um, what was it like for you in the day that she left, and then in the weeks and the months that followed? What were you experiencing at that time?
Yeah. Um, it surprised me. I mean, I thought like I thought I'd like, of course I would miss her, but I would just be like, whoa! um, but there was also a lot of other things that were going on. So I had always dreamed of moving somewhere warm, but okay, since I was once married to a man, we co-parented our daughter since she was 5 years old. So she spent a week at his house and she spent a week at our house. So it was very much, it wasn't even a 50-50. It was just a 100% co-parent situation. I always wanted to move. He never wanted to, so I stayed. Then I got divorced and married my wife. And so I was sort of like stuck there and just said, we need to be co-parents this whole time. So I will wait to move until she graduates high school. So for me, there was also this excitement about her leaving. That sounds terrible, because then I could finally move somewhere warm. So
Yeah.
because the housing market was really hot at that time, we actually sold our house right after our daughter left for college. Like literally sold my daughter's bed before she even left. I'm like, you don't mind sleeping on the floor, do you? She's like, Mom, I haven't even left. And I'm like, sorry. We put all of our stuff in storage and moved in with my ex-husband's sister and her husband, because that's just what you do.
What you
Bless
do.
her.
Yeah.
So within like less than a month, I was an empty nester who was homeless, and all of our stuff was in storage, and we're living out in the suburbs. And so my identity within a month just shifted. And I didn't really think like, that's not really going to affect me that much. That was such a struggle. I fell apart on a regular basis in very predictable ways and also really unpredictable ways. And I actually, now that you bring this up, I do remember us being on the phone and I was just sobbing and I couldn't even talk. And you just held space for me and just let me fall apart. And to let me know that it was okay to fall apart and that I didn't have to scramble around and try to put the pieces back together right away, of like, just be with it, and that this is going to be a process that is going to take a while. And it did. That was really hard. But I mean, we got through it. We made it to California.
Right.
But that was kind of I don't want to say that it was a dark time, but it was really, really hard for sure. I was having regular breakdowns. Oh, I even was having panic attacks, which I've never had before.
What did those feel like for you, Jenny? Like what did those feel like for you?
Heart racing, really, really racing. Like shaky hands, feeling sick to my stomach. But basically it was like, yeah, heart racing. And I could like literally just like feel adrenaline going through my system, even though like nothing had triggered, nothing had happened. Like I could have just been sitting at my laptop doing just regular work and just out of nowhere. And that was strange for me because I feel like I've always like had control over my body, to not have control. And it was just coming out at random times. Like I remember I was at an F45 workout, just working out, and I was doing these sandbag cleans and they were really hard. And I was like, ugh, I can't do this. And then all of a sudden I was like, I can't do this. And I dropped the sandbag, started to cry, went into the bathroom and just had a full-on breakdown, fall apart, seemingly out of nowhere. I mean, it was just stuff like that was happening on a regular basis. The antithesis of resilience. I'm not always totally resilient. We all have our moments.
Isn't a part of becoming resilient, Jenny, allowing those emotions to surface, to have their space, to process them fully versus to stuff them back down and be like, I'm going to finish these sandbag cleans no matter what, and not allow that to come up? I mean, if those panic attacks were subsided or suppressed or pushed down, who's to say that wouldn't lead to something far more catastrophic in the future? And, you know, that's when you say that I had a chance to just sit there and hold space for you where you broke down. You know, well, one of the reasons why I did that was because I had no idea what the hell to say or do. I mean, like there was no fix it, right? And I've
Yeah.
learned, and you said this before, it's with your daughter. It's like, I want to fix it. I want to jump in. And one of the things that I hear from a lot of men is, we get our heads cut off because we try to solve, we try to fix, we try to solution when there is none in the moment, right? And all that's needed is a hold some space, allow me to feel safe, allow these emotions to be processed. And what I had the beauty of witnessing with you on that particular call where you were inconsolable and sobbing, you couldn't find your words, was after a certain period of allowing that, then you felt clean. You
Mm.
felt there was like an opening, there was a nurturing that had taken place. And on the other side of it, you were still tender and raw, but there was like a new resolve to you. So having gone through, like you were saying, an identity crisis of sorts, you were having panic attacks, you were missing, one of the most important people in your life, your only daughter, having gone through those darker times or more painful times, now being on the other side of it, what did you learn about resiliency that you didn't know before?
Mm. Um, you and I talked about this, and you gave it such a beautiful name, the tyranny of positivity. Because during that time, I believe like you give life to whatever you give your energy to. And if you are just constantly are like, woe is me, things are so bad, well, then the reality is things are really bad. I have always been like, choose to focus on what is going well, what's good. So I was doing this journaling positivity practice, just like focus on what's going well. And what I didn't realize was I was pushing things down inadvertently. And when you push them down, they will bubble up. And they will bubble up in surprising, inopportune moments. And so, one of the things that I've been working on since then is how do you, like, I just always have this question of, like, how do you know what is giving your grief or your stress or your issues, like, enough time in the spotlight for you to process and dig through without overindulging in
Yeah.
them? And when is it time to move on to back to like just let's focus on what is going well? So I think that was one of the really big learnings, is that in an attempt to focus on the positive, I was ignoring the negative that needed to have processing. So that's the thing I've kind of trying to learn, is how much time and energy do you give to the negative? Like, how do you know when you've processed it enough? When are you done?
Yeah.
And I know there's
I mean,
not an answer.
yeah, there's no definitive answer, but I think that goes back to the power of, let's just say, our particular relationship is sometimes you're not the best gauge of where that line is. And that's why it's so important to have relationships like this in your life where you can trust, where you can
Mhm.
ask someone to hold space, to ask the questions, to not provide advice, but just to just be there and allow the emotion to run its course. Because it was very clear for me, like I was able to witness, the emotions coming up for you, the tears, the sadness, and then I could clearly witness when that emotion had passed and given way to a new strength and resolve. And then I think your awareness of that was also strengthened by my acknowledgement of it. Being he was like, oh, Dominic can see this, and oh yeah, I'm feeling stronger. I feel like I've let something go that was stuck inside of me. So, has that been a part of your experience, Jenny, with say our relationship and with other very close relationships where you have that trust to be able to know where that line is of allowing the emotion to run its course without tipping over into overindulgence?
Hmm. Yeah, and I do think that's why having people in our lives, they can also see things that we can't see.
And
And so I appreciate that about our relationship of like, not only can you just like hold space for me, but you can also see things that I can't see. And because you have a giant pair of balls. Bring it up in your very loving, nurturing way of, what about this? Or what about that? For me to just be like, how did I not see that? Or, oh, that's interesting. And I think I need to explore that a little bit more. So, yeah, I am just so grateful for those times in my life where I am struggling, that I do have people that I can reach out to, that I can just call and just be like, I'm just struggling. And like, people are like, okay, what do you got? Like, let it rip. How can I help you?